Hey Ram, how's it going? Thanks for joining in for this conversation. Yeah, welcome to WalletFrens.
Yeah, all good. I'm super happy that I got your invite and happy to talk today.
So just to give some context about what is this and what do we mean by WalletFrens? The idea is that all of us who are part of these conversations are basically friends and friends on chain and kind of have our wallets and have started our journeys and are connected through the network, decentralized networks that we've been part of. So that's why it's sort of called WalletFrens. And so sort of my first question for everyone who's coming on is to kind of start to know their wallet history. Basically, how did they start?
Cool.
How did they start? What was their first wallet? And what did you do with it? And was it a centralized exchange wallet and what was your first experience?
Very, very fun question. Actually, so my whole crypto journey started with Bitcoin in 2013. And back then, I remember I once actually, downloaded the whole blockchain and created a wallet on my computer. So I think that was my very, very first wallet. And later on, I was just trying out different exchanges, etc. And then only later I learned about the not your keys, not your coins. So eventually always moved to like a self-custodial wallet and never ever have had like crypto on exchanges. So
which year was this?
2013.
2013. Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so it was way more difficult. I'm totally not a technical person, but it was just fun figuring out like how does this work? How can I have this, on my computer and interact with this network? Yeah.
How did you get to know about it? Like 2013, I think it's like a lot of people are not yet like even aware about what is this and like how did you even get to know about Bitcoin?
Yeah, I don't know. I've always been just on the internet exploring new things, trying out new stuff. And then obviously at one point Bitcoin just popped up. And when I found Bitcoin, I always say, like it was at $300 just to not to make an impression, but more to say like, okay, at that moment, for me, it wasn't really about the price. It was more about the technology and what it could be and possible future implications and stuff. And that just intrigued me. So I dove in and quickly figured out that reading about it was easier than actually using it. So
So are you like did the ideology of Bitcoin, was that the thing that you kind of pulled you in, or more the because I think there were different even factions within the whole maximalistic community where people are kind of. So were you a maximalist at one point and a convert later on, or like how was your?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely a Bitcoin maximalist too. I'm not an Ethereum hater or whatever. I think that's, by the way, a total nonsense discussion or waste of energy. But for me, I'm just I'm a digital native. Like I love the internet. I love exchanging and value with other people, having talks like this, meeting people from around the world, and just having a native currency to exchange value with each other just sounds so logical. And especially when you look at the white paper, not even sure, it's maybe 12 or 11 pages, like 9, I don't know, like very, very short. And it's just simple, straightforward, very clear, even for a non-technical person like me. It just makes sense. So I also always say, like, people who say they are against Bitcoin or Bitcoin is whatever, it doesn't work, I always say, like, then you didn't really do your homework. Because if you really do your homework, then you know that this is a major top 5 invention ever. So yeah.
So from
I guess I'm a maximalist when I say that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like it fundamentally disrupted few things, right? Like, of course, like the big promise of money is there, but I think what it brought ahead is this whole ability of trustless interactions between people. I think that is like one of the most valuable things as a utility. And I happened to
I
be in
agree.
a meetup yesterday, and like uh, there was this almost like a conversation around ideology and sort of utility. And one interesting thing which I found was like even and at this I saw like even Woodstock, when it put out its recent thesis, it was talking about not blockchain, not crypto, but DLT, like decentralized ledger technology, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think this sorts of subtle reframings are also very interesting to observe, like to see like what you're mainly focusing is on the decentralization, the ledger technology, and it's about the technological upgrade and the utilitarian aspects it brings in more than the speculative aspect, which is what mainly people are focused when you say a cryptocurrency or when you say blockchain. Like again, it gets too technical. I think the utilitarian aspect of what it enables, and then I think that like that aspect is something which is to focus on, which often kinds of takes away these conversations about what do we prioritize in terms of centralization, utility, mainstream adoption, and those sorts of things. So I'm kind of curious, like as you're someone who's been building early ones, maybe you want to talk a little bit about that, and like as it goes into sort of that onboarding experience for a lot of people. So I have a follow-up question on that. But yeah, before that, like, can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about what you're building?
Yeah. So maybe to share one thing like before, what intrigues me a lot about this whole blockchain technology and the connectiveness with people, and also what you said, the way of creating trust over a distance all around the world with people that are anonymous or semi-anonymous. That just really intrigues me. Plus the fact that it's also all transparent, right? Well, that's actually what you are building upon. Just because the fact that it's transparent and everyone can check anything basically when they want, that just changes the whole playing field around building things and the value propositions and what you promise and what people can expect. And for me, that is very, very exciting. And I think it's still early. Some people might say, you cannot say that, it's so many years, blah blah. But I think there's still, everyone is just figuring it out. Like what could this be? What can we do? And that is, I think, a big part behind the idea of early ones, is that we think, this space, crypto, Web3, is just going to happen. I think airplane tickets are going to be NFTs that we can just trade with each other. Like, I think that is where it's going to go. So, yeah, we see a lot of entrepreneurs and companies moving into this space, building, figuring out what can I contribute and how can I, build a business, a product, networks, etc. So that is where we want to, add value with Early Ones. So Early Ones is a market research platform for Web3, where people who build a new product, service, or game in Web3, like you, can create a listing on our platform to let verified Web3 users, that's the other side of our platform, contribute to your product development through surveys or feedback assignments, or you can find people to interview. And then when these people contribute to your listing, for example, give you feedback, then they can earn crypto rewards in return. And in that way, we really want to help anyone building something new in Web3 with talking to actual potential users or customers, people who are tech savvy and digitally native, that can, hopefully help you build better products. Something that I think is done in Web 2, not enough. And in Web3, even more difficult. Everyone is just a wallet and a PFP. Like, how do you find these people? And that is where we, through our platform, want to match these sides to, help you build better products in Web3.
Yep. So I think when you're kind of looking at this problem statement of putting a face to these anonymous wallets, like that's like one aspect of it, and the other aspect of it is kind of projects getting these feedback loops. And I think another element is sort of making these products robust enough for like a lot of people being able to use them in future, right? So just double tapping on that third element of the products and which are kind of building for that sort of mainstream adoption. What are some of the things like which you're seeing some sort of conflicts or some sort of trade-offs which people are having to make for user experiences versus let's say the core ideology, like you said, you were at least a bit more maximalist, and like, you know what I'm talking about in terms of decentralization and like like some ideological frameworks on the top of which the whole space is kind of originated from, versus as it sort of gets more mainstream, there is a trade-off that essentially needs to happen from a user experience standpoint, whether that's a limitation of technology or just making it more usable. So what's your thoughts on sort of what are some of those trade-offs, and like how are you thinking about, or like what are the things that you are seeing other projects thinking about?
I think this is a really interesting question, and it kind of ties in also to what we do, you know. So I think whenever you have an idea or a vision, that will not be there tomorrow, right? That is like the star on the horizon, or whatever you want to call that. That is where we are moving to. But in order to get there, you cannot assume that the thing that's in your head is exactly where you're going to end up, and you can only figure out how and where you're going to end up if you do stuff, right? So people who now have like the ideological discussion about everything should be decentralized, all the image storage and the hosting and the yada 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 yada, that is just not ready, right? So my answer to that is always like, okay, but what do you expect? Like, tell me one idea in the future of mankind where someone had an idea and the day after, full adoption, fully built, all these things. You know, it's just an irrelevant point for me. I think it's all about building, trying stuff out, sharing that with each other, keeping this conversation going, and having like super strong ideological discussions in this phase of a super nascent market, technology, and development. Yeah, it's kind of pointless, to be honest, right? It's kind of like this intellectual war without actually doing things. So yeah, I think that's kind of my stance there. Like I am aligned with the vision of a fully decentralized stuff and all these things. And we have to figure out if that's even possible. And if it's not possible, what are the trade-offs that builders and entrepreneurs, etc., have to make? And that's a question. And if that is then good enough for enough users to eventually create mainstream adoption, yeah, that's still a question. But we only get there by doing things and with less talking, you know. Let's talk about the results of the things that we do, you know, instead of pondering about the future. Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, like, I think I've been part of Kernel. Have you heard about Kernel, the sort of Web3 study group? No. Okay. You should check it out. It's very interesting. It's in sort of a good knowledge hub from where there is a lot of intersection of ideological frameworks from an executional standpoint. Like some of really good projects have come out of it, including Try Showtime and likes. So I think as a part of the conversations there, one thing which I found very interesting is there is almost some tracks which are like go into philosophy almost, and like spirituality or borderline, and contextualize building in that context, right? Like, so sort of so it's a worldview where what are you like one of the questions which are as a part of entry was, how do you view world as? Like, is it a game that you're looking to win, or is it like
sorry,
the program?
How do I view what?
How do you view the world?
The world,
like the world. Okay, like, or your
That's
own
a big
life
question.
or your own life. Like, is it a game to win, or like or is it like a garden to cultivate, or is it is like, I don't remember the third option, but basically kind of trying to contextualize it in the frame of where you are looking at the thing that you are doing from. And I think those different, like if you have, let's say, as an answer, different things, right? Like if it's like, I'm here to sort of win this game, then your objective of the kind of products that you end up building or everything would be sort of very different from if you, let's say, it's a garden that you're looking to cultivate. And what I found very interesting in Web3 is you kind of see a mixture of all these things. Like,
of course, that's logical, right? Like, and I think that is because it's so early. Like any new media type revolution, I think you can view Web3 as, if it's the next evolution of the internet, this is also a new type of media revolution. Anything from the book press, even the clay tablets before, like the democratization of knowledge, and eventually knowledge became value. I think then Web3 is about the democratization of value, of the value exchange between people who make things and people who consume things. It's always the same. There's always people that say, this is stupid, this is not going to work. Other people are like 30 years ahead talking about the vision, and no one follows those people. Then there's people in the middle that don't really know. In the beginning, it's expensive. It's the same all the time, all the time. And yeah, of course you see that now, like there are people in NFTs that spend more money than they can lose. They don't do enough research. They just follow other people. And then they also complain later that they lost money. And then other people talk about that and it's negative, and et cetera, et cetera. But I think what is my challenge also for how I look at the world is, okay, being critical and complaining about stuff, that is super, super easy. Like seriously, no effort involved, but actually looking at something more objectively, looking inside yourself, like how do I view myself here? What is my viewpoint on this? And trying to challenge yourself to, if you find something like this interesting, just follow it with an open mind and see where that leads you. I think I sometimes see people. Wait, one thing. I sometimes see people on Twitter, that a lot of other people follow for their hot takes and blah 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 blah, that are, in my opinion, so short-sighted. And then again, I think like, okay, but what the hell do you expect? Like you're stirring up a discussion to have a discussion, to have likes or interaction or whatever, and that is not beneficial to. A new technology that still has to be figured out, and for me, I find that way too negative. So my point of view and my worldview is I'm open and I'm trying to stay objective, which is an internal challenge, and trying to see, how much I can learn and hopefully along the way teach other people and bring more people into a developing technology and market that I find interesting, and I think that's also part of why I really like the concept of early ones and really focus more time on building that, because I think we can be a part of that. So, I hope that's an answer to your question.
I think that's having a why sort of solves a lot of the sort of hows and whats, right? Like when your sort of intent is kind of is capsulated, whether that's in the name or the product that you're trying to build, and like that becomes a guiding line for a lot of the decisions that you would have to make along the way on a day-to-day building of a company. And I think switching a bit more deeper into the founder elements of it and a builder elements of it. So like we spoke about these bunch of influences or vectors, you can call, right? Like whether that is being early in a market where there isn't like a lot of traction yet, it's almost an open field where your vision can be as like mad or genius as it can be, and you never know what is what, right? And then then there are these ideological vectors which keep pushing you and pulling you, and then there is like everything is like a dynamic thing, like whether that's the business model, whether that's the user base, whether that's the product, and sort of like with so many sort of things changing and morphing with sort of the market itself, like the being in such an early stage of cycle obviously is prone to more volatility. So So in that whole context of things, like how do you sort of center yourself or keep focused or keep building as a builder? Like I think uh, I myself, when we are trying to build Wall, there have been multiple points in time, whether that's the product that we're building or the target segment that we're focusing on. Like earlier, we were like like you must have checked out RecMeter, which is purely focused around NFT analytics and that's persona. But I think now
Yeah.
we've gone a little bit wider into more than NFTs and looking at these analytics, how they can be useful for communities. So that's sort of a different product in a way, targeting projects and customers who are building these applications using the same stack. But to make those decisions of switching from this over to this is never sort of easy, or like to choose what to focus on. So how do you kind of think about and like I think what makes you work in even a sane manner for yourself?
Yeah, I love this question. I think, and what is really nice with early ones, we are really following, I would say, my philosophy of how to turn an idea into something where you can, at a certain point in time, in an objective way, say, this is something I should and want to continue with because I see this promise. In the beginning, your idea is a combination of assumptions that you have, and there's a high risk, because if some assumptions are not true, then your whole idea collapses. So I think and also with David, my co-founder, we just really focus on how can we make it smaller, like what I just said. So eventually, I would love for early ones to be the platform that any new builder, any company at any stage can use to do market research, for their Web3 products. But I know that is not going to be the case tomorrow, product-wise not, and adoption-wise not, right? So, okay, where do I actually start tomorrow? What is the most important thing that I have to do first? And so we just started with a landing page, with an email sign-up, with our proposition, like, this is what we are trying to do. If you're interested, just, sign up. Then we had 5,000 people sign up. Then we had a pre-sale of our NFT access pass. So we have free listings that people can participate in, and then premium listings. Premium listings need an NFT access pass. Raise some money with that, using that money to validate the concept further, but not keeping the big picture in mind, but understanding that you have to take these little steps and that you also have to enable yourself to, at any moment that you choose, to stop the idea or stop the concept, And I think that that is still very challenging, even for someone like me who is really a believer of going at it like this. Like, my mood changes 5 times a day, I'm sure you recognize that. But eventually I think it's way more sustainable, because let's say you also have people, I've met tons of them in the last few years, like they have an idea, they spend 100K on building the thing that's in their head, and then they say they launch, quote unquote, and then there's crickets, like there's no one. And they made it too big for themselves to fill, not only in their commitment with money, etc., but also maybe how they shared it to everyone or whatever. And then, it becomes really hard to actually find people that understand what you're building and want to use it and get value from it and all these things. So if you make it too big in the beginning, this is my personal vision, then it also becomes harder to like adapt and steer in another direction, or be more open to feedback, basically, or changing your product or all these things. So my tactic is to keep it as small as possible. So not only in the things we build, but also the time we take, the amount of money we want to spend, the conversations with each other, like, how do you think it's going now? Does it still motivate you? What do you miss? What do you think went well, etc.? So just being really honest about the fact that your idea stays an idea for a long time until you get to the point where you can say, hey, now I know that this can be a thing, and based on the type of idea or market and like the context, it takes a certain amount of time before you can get to that point, or not, which mostly happens, like most ideas suck, which is fine. But if you adopt that, it becomes easier to work through your ideas and hopefully stay objective enough to judge if,
I think you touched upon a very
if you
interesting,
should continue or not.
Yeah, you touched upon a very interesting point in terms of validating and sort of like this notion that I think maybe anyone who's tried to build something would soon realize it, but maybe some of the people who have like yet to jump into building might have this overemphasis on idea. I think a lot of them surely like pass that very soon. But once you have this repository of ideas and directions that you could be going, then there are like sort of even those micro decisions to be made in terms of how do we position this? Are we still like, okay, you went ahead and built in this direction, but like now you have to kind of, let's say, pivot and go into another direction. So there is a bunch of things that you would probably need to focus on, whether that's like, is the brand name still relevant? Is the product stack that we built sort of more relevant? Is this the idea or this the idea or this the idea, right? Like, how do you kind of, what's your process about validating ideas, or like, what's your thought process around, like, why do you need to invest your next 2 months into this thing, not that thing?
So I always start with the fact that people should adopt, and I think it's a mindset thing. Like, it's eventually you can build everything. You can iterate on a product 1,000,000 times, and you can build whatever you want nowadays. So the question you have to ask yourself is not, could I build this? Which is mostly yes, but it's about, should I build this? Where for that, the answer is mostly no, because most ideas suck. So you have to challenge yourself in, when you have an idea, to figure out, okay, how fast and how simple, and which is acceptable for me. So it's very personal, how much time you want to spend on something, or money or efforts, whatever. Okay, what are the smallest things I can do within my own limitations, eventually, in my own boundaries, to answer the question, should I build this? And I think that is where it starts, and I always say that to, I'm a non-technical product builder. I always say that to non-technical people, like, you don't need a technical person in the beginning. You can do a lot of things in order to get at least some taste and sometimes answers to the question, should I be building this thing? And when the answer is yes, you should be building this thing, then when you talk to, for example,
what are those things that you could be doing?
Talk to people. Well, that's actually also, why we made early ones, try to see if you can have people fill out surveys or get feedback on your deck. Like, when you are non-technical, you can still make like a deck that shows your value proposition, or mock up, like, you can even mock up a product in Keynote, like it's, so that's what I would do. And that's kind of what we did with that landing page where we showed the value proposition. I made that landing page with a no-code tool. For us, it was, okay, we have a few thousand people that signed up on the email list. This resonates somewhere. Okay, let's get them together and talk to them and see if we can learn from them, and then we iterated from there, basically. So I think there's so many things you can do that are not necessarily technical, and especially when you're a non-technical, maybe even more, by the way, when you are technical, because the big, I think, trap for a lot of technical people is that when they have an idea in their head, they are also able to make the thing.
Yeah.
But you have to, and that is the mindset, you have to understand that it's not about the thing, because you can change the thing and iterate the thing 1,000,000 times. It's about if the thing should exist in the first place. And that is just way more challenging and harder, especially for developers as well, because the most fun is building the thing and tinkering around and figuring out, like, I totally understand.
Yeah.
But it's not fun when you launch the thing and there's silence. There's no one who knows about you or wants your solution or whatever. And then when you have your solution and you're looking for people that have a problem, in the past 10 years, I've never seen that work. Because you don't know what people actually want if you didn't talk to them. So then you made a product based on one opinion, which it was yours.
Yeah.
So yeah, then it becomes just super difficult to even adjust and adapt later on because you invested so much already.
Right. So I think just like doubling down a little bit on that, right? Like you sort of figured out, let's say, it's a big enough problem. It's a problem which is kind of, you've spoken to a few people and they are saying, okay, I have this problem, right? Like I know that this is something which needs to be solved. You've validated that thought. And then there are sort of these different solutions which you could be offering to solving that problem. And then specifically there are those nuances of how the solution is served, like what are the intricacies of the solution itself, and that sort of a thing. And so as a builder, as a founder, how do you think about where do you draw those lines, whether that's what sort of work do you kind of give down to, let's say, your product designer versus like those different levels of breakdown, and then like how do you go about the feedback loop?
Yeah, so let's say you get to the point where you think like, okay, I'm going to build this thing. Then I always see like two tracks that exist next to each other. And the one track is more like the business, the value proposition, all these things, and the other track is the thing, the tech, the design, etc. And then again, it's about taking a few steps on the technical side, and then you use that to see if you can take a few steps on the business or the marketing side. And if that has positive results, then you can say, okay, well, based on the fact that some people use the product that I now have in a certain way, I got feedback, etc. Okay, I'm going to build a little bit further, and then I'm going to see if I can find more people that now adopt my version 0.2, for example. And then so it's like these two tracks next to each other that go up a bit, and then the other goes up, and then the other goes up. And I think that kind of dance, or those two things, that is what, in my opinion, is really important. Like sometimes you have to build something because only then you can move on the business or the proposition side, and sometimes you have to change something on the business or proposition side because the best way for the product to work is, I don't know, XYZ. So you have to start communicating that, for example. So yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah.
True.
So a little ladder, maybe like two ladders next to each other that both go up a bit.
Yeah. No, I think in my experience too. So I think when you're kind of especially pivoting and kind of moving from one direction to another, validating that idea obviously is sort of the step one, like for you to even like take a decision to have enough conviction going from one thing to another. But I think then the thing comes out is also to break it down into smaller parts, which are then like the actual utilitarian feedback is coming, where you're showing this product to someone.
Okay, if stuff doesn't work, then you have to fix it. Yeah,
right.
Of course.
Like, no. But what I also mean is like the solution itself, right? Like in terms of I have a solution. Like let's for example say, right, like so one of the things which you're building is on-chain identification of segmentation, basically based on on-chain analytics. So. So now when we kind of started speaking to people, obviously it's a problem statement. Acquisition is a problem statement everyone has. They want to know like who are the right sort of people to that they could be joining them. Then when you ask those subtle questions like, do you care more about the right side of people joining you, or just care about like just people joining you? Right. And I think
in the beginning for any product, it's about gathering as many people as you can.
Exactly.
So a big group, let them use what you think is the best thing that they could use at that moment. Then figure out, who actually uses it, who uses it in the way that I want them to use it, who uses it in a totally different way, who doesn't use it, etc. So let's say you gather 1,000 people at first. And then later, after a certain time, you can segment. Okay, these are the people that don't use it. Ask them why. These are the people that use it, but in a different way than I imagined. Okay, ask them why. and then here are the people that use it exactly in that way that I intend. You also ask them why, like, is their why the same as my assumption of the why,
Yeah. So,
and then you gather these insights, and then you say, okay, the people that don't use it, can I do something for them to put them more in the user bucket? If not, then not. If yes, then you build it. And I think that's kind of how I approach that process, right? And I think that is something that a lot of people have to understand, that all these people that you gather in the beginning, that is A, necessary, and B, not all these people are going to be your perfect user.
Yeah.
So, for example,
that is where I think knowing your sort of community becomes really important in terms of so sort of the two tools which we have now kind of are building kind of come from this insight. That is, first is like a lot of projects, like, okay, they have 10,000 people in their Discord, and they, for whatever activity, have connected their wallet. So they have a sense of their on-chain activities and maybe some amount of their dApp activity and Discord activity. So there are all these places where different ways in which these guys are engaging. And you can already understand who of them are sort of actively contributing versus not, and like you said, these different categories. And then on top of these things, to put these different frameworks, which is their on-chain activity, where their dApp activity and Discord behavior, and or even their non-app related activity, which is their general performance of the wallet, whether they are are they generally interested in sort of NFTs, or what other dApps do they interact with, what POAPs do they are they active in DAO. So just knowing like a little bit more about the persona. So that's the first product, which it's actually one product, but just different segments of the product, but just to know your community, and then sort of figuring out who are the right set of people that you could be onboarding, considering as this is an input, or individually also, like a similar use case using individuals, people who might be, let's say, for example, in your case, these people might be who have claimed some sort of reward from layer 3, right? Like, I think there can be a certain intersection between sort of people who are interested in that
exactly
kind of activity. So I think being able to identify the set of people who are the right fit for your community. And then the next thing which we are kind of doing is like being able to create a reward for that, or a campaign for that sort of a thing, where like these people are eligible to claim the thing. So that is sort of one stack which we are kind of focused on. Another interesting problem which we found with projects is also being able to engage once you are part of that community, right? So like some might be an active contributor, and because most of the projects fundamentally want to incentivize users at some point in time, and it's going to be like very difficult. Like,
the question is how, huh?
Exactly, right. The question is, how do I even know? Like, how do I even know who are the active contributors? And like, yes, some of their track records are there through the period, through their on-chain activity and dApp activity. But I think, there needs to be that translator which translates this. And if you are able to even identify this at an early stage, you would easily be able to even incentivize, gamify that a little bit more, so more people fall into the cohorts that you would like to. So that's another problem statement that we're looking to solve. This is the things that kind of what we are focused on building from just sort of just doing NFT analytics.
Yeah, and I think when you share this now in connection to my last comment, I think what would be very interesting is that, for example, in that example I just gave, let's say you gather 1,000 users, some product gathers 1,000 users, maybe through us, for example. People use their product in a certain way, and then they find, okay, from these 1,000 people, these 250, those are our perfect users. Are there any commonalities, between them, whether it could be on-chain data like wallet age or whatever you can, analyze, or maybe location data, or, whatever. And then they could come to you and say like, hey, these are the people that we are looking for, and if you can then show them more of those people that are like those 250 type of people, that is real value. That's kind of how I see it, and I think, to be honest, everyone should approach it like that. I think what I always like is that and annoys me. On Twitter, you see sometimes people that say like, "Oh, we have 10,000 users" or something like that. But what is a user? Is that someone with an account? Did you acquire 10,000 people who created an account? So then you have to say registered users. There's a difference between registered and active users, and that always intrigued me. Like, okay, but if you talk about it in that way, you're kind of lying to yourself, basically. That is not what a user is. And I think that is just interesting. Like, the more you're transparent about that to yourself, at least, the better you can build your product. And I think tools like yours, and I think also early ones, definitely can help people find the right people and build their product with actual users.
Yeah, that's true. And so just kind of switching gears a little bit more into sort of the macro stuff of what the space is, and like kind of talking about users, right? Like, we theoretically, like, there's about like 300 million wallets which are made, but theoretically or proven like on chain, but the fact that currently maybe there's about like,
it's not individuals, I think.
Yeah. So it's not individuals, firstly, and second thing is even the active wallets today maybe stand about like 10% of that, or rather 1% of that, like 5 million or 10 million, maybe like under 5%, basically, right? So so in the big picture of things, like, this is nothing, right? Like, it's just like a blip in the ocean. So so in that context, what are some of the use cases that you are sort of seeing as ways people are going to be getting into the space? Like, or do they even have to, right? Like, or like, is the target addressable market of blockchain or DLT or crypto, whatever you can call it, is it 5%, 10%, 50%?
To be honest, no clue. But I think I like the, I don't know if you know this article from, that's Chris Dixon at Andreessen Horowitz, and he says everything new starts out as a toy, like a low barrier to entry and something fun or engaging where people can explore new technologies that is just, very, very simple to try out. And that's why I also like your rect meter approach, like, there's way more behind it, but it's very easy to just try it out and see, what Wall could do for you. And then later you can connect that to, all the things that you eventually want to do. I think what I like is making things more fun and simplistic. Like, I really like Rainbow Wallet, for example, rainbow.me. There's unicorns and rainbows, and it's like a fun, engaging way to create your wallet. And to be honest, I think that is where it all starts. Like, you have to have the wallet. The wallet is a way for you to interact with whatever this Web3 thing is going to be. And in order to know what a wallet is and how it actually works, there's more kind of research involved than in Web2, where you just say, okay, this is my email, this is my password. Like, for a wallet, you actually have to understand the technology up to some point to know what a secret or what the seed phrase is and a private key, etc. And I think that is the biggest barrier to entry, I think. So that is what we all can teach to people is and share. And that's why I'm also sharing it here. Like, if you think this is interesting, make sure you understand that. Like, this is your portal to the whole thing. And it's kind of what you use to interact, get access, and exchange value. Own and exchange value, digital value. So for me, that's kind of the number one thing. My question also had this connotation about sort of element of overselling, which often, especially when things are like kind of pushed down upon
obviously there is a natural human reaction to kind of say no, right? Like you want to rebel against that, and I think it's also important for a lot of projects building to really ask this question about, like, is blockchain really a necessity, or like um, is the technology going to give you that edge in solving that problem which was not solved? Like, is it solving it better or not? And I think there might be answers to, for a lot of questions, the answer might be no. And like it's almost like it's like a gold rush, right? Like there is a thing or activity that's happening, and like everyone wants to get a piece of that, and so they say like, okay, this is also gold, this is also gold, but I think it need not be. And I think we are seeing a lot less of that, maybe thanks to bear market, but a lot of this was basically seen in the let's say like early 2021 or mid of that. And one interesting thing I found with sort of these cyclical ways of going about things in the, especially like this sort of cycle, has been the amount of building that's happening is like way more than any of those previous cycles. And hence the sort of capital infusion that's happening is also sort of pretty high compared to what it was even before just the deal flows, right? So in that standpoint, sort of as someone who might be just looking to get into Web3, or some of the projects, let's say, are launching right now on early ones, and maybe a lot of them are bootstrapped and kind of just trying to figure out that sort of a thing. So what's your thoughts on like how to approach it, considering the user base has shrunk, considering the capital is like, access to capital is still there, but it's not like maybe as easily available as, let's say, 1 year ago. And so what's your thoughts on sort of like, as a builder, as someone who's just getting into the space at this point in time, what sort of is a good mindset to have when you're approaching it?
I think it's no different than in Web 2, to be honest. If you want to build something, decide if it's for fun or if it's for serious. And if it's for fun, you can do anything you want, and you should not attach any expectations and all these things. Just mess around and play with it. A few of these ideas in 1,000 will eventually go from fun to an actual business, but that must never be your expectation. So yeah, I would say just mess around, try out stuff, with that expectation as well. And if you think, okay, I really want to do a business or try to build a startup company and get funding and all these things, then yeah, it's the same as in Web 2. You have to build something that is valuable to people. And just putting a Web3 sauce around something very basic, which I think a lot of projects are, but that's not even criticism. I think that's just the stage of where we're at. Yeah, is that then valuable enough if you attach, this is blockchain, and then, is that better than the alternative, the Web 2 alternative or whatever? I don't, in a lot of cases, I don't think so. I do think that where you see a lot of value is obviously the whole art thing. And what I really like is the music, business in Web3, I think is very, very interesting. Like I saw a product which is also on early ones now called Descent.xyz. And I think there's multiple similar products where, upcoming artists can sell a part of their royalties on this platform as NFTs. And then, they kind of get crowdfunded in a certain way. People who own an NFT can get a part of the royalties each year, and I think that there's a nice, equal value exchange between a creator of something, music, entertainment, and someone who is a listener or a supporter that then owns, part of this royalty, as in, I think those are like good examples, because it's very obvious that the way it's now done for a lot of artists, music artists in this example, is just can be done way better. So that is just a really obvious thing to focus on and try to see if you can fix that. I think there's a lot of Web3 music, type of product. But
Creative
for the
economy
rest,
at large is something which is kind of has a lot of product market fit potential in like using this technology. But I think having said that, I also kind of want to distinguish between what is fancy and what looks very glittery versus what is like actually will get like a lot of utilitarian elements. Like I think the elements of like NFTs, largely the cycle has been primarily speculative in nature, right? And I think
yes.
But the utility of NFT as a technology, whether that's like token gating, subscriptions, memberships, and proof of anything, like proof of work, proof of whatever, right? Like I think these things, I'm like a lot more bullish on those elements, considering these two aspects that the creative side of things is like obviously a natural extension to what it was there, but also a problem statement which is kind of looked at by many people, and it sort of is glamoury, and it gets like I mean it's just think about like how many people want to become influencers on Instagram, right? Versus how many people actually make it. And it's not to say that it's not the same for SMBs, like, but the difference is like naturally, like because of the whatever the social elements involved with it, like a type of persona of builders are attracted to that, and a type of user base is attracted to that, like, and the conversion rate from there is like kind of very different versus comparing it to maybe if you solve for a specific niche project which wants to actually use this technology, which is not so glamoury, but which actually find utility in adopting this technology, and maybe if you're going able to solve that problem for them, that might actually have like a lot more possibility of business success too. So yeah, I think I mean personally we've kind of gone through these different B2C B2B directions, and kind of had to think about a lot of these things, like the whys of why you're doing something, and to really drill down and see where the business value proposition lies. And
and the why becomes for the business, right? So I think that is important. Like I always follow desirability, viability, feasibility. Desirability is, do people want it? Like, is there a problem to solve? Is there a need to be fulfilled? That is the why. The viability is, okay, if I solve it and provide people with, whatever the value is that they are looking for, can I make this into a viable business? i.e., does it bring in more than it costs for me to make? And then the feasibility is, can I build this? And what are the things that I need to figure out before I actually can say, yes, I can build this. But yeah, as we talked about, eventually you can build most of the ideas that you come up with, and that's always kind of my approach. Yeah.
No, I think this was I think this gave a very good perspective about, like, I think some of the audience who are listening are also either sort of trying to got into the space and looking at it from multiple viewpoints. And I think this was really a good insightful conversation from a standpoint of building and sort of how to, I think we spoke about a bunch of mental models which can really help them break down their starting off process. This is like the idea with WalletFrens is also to basically like we had NFT Nate, we had Atare, like those two come from like sort of very different worlds of like just like speculating on NFTs versus creating storytelling in NFTs. And now we had this conversation which is more about sort of builders. So the idea is to address a lot of people who are interested in the space and might have different inclinations to get a sense of like how can they also be part of this. So this was a very fun conversation for me as a builder, and I did like bounce a bunch of questions that I'm kind of thinking about right now also, and get some of those answers.
Yeah, cool. I enjoyed it too, and always happy to share these thoughts. And I think tying it back to your question about how do you look at life and all these things, I think this could be a conversation to help other people move forward as well. So happy happy we got the chance to talk.
So before I let you go, I have one final question
Yes.
for you. So what do you kind of see your let's say next generation, right? Like the next generation of maybe your son. I don't know you're planning to have kids or not, but like let's say next generation of people that's going to come in. What are their first wallet activities going to be? What do you think?
Good idea. Oh yeah, that totally depends on if there's going to be like super centralized identification stuff. You know what? Probably just like groceries or something. Something like that. Yeah, I think that's honestly my answer. Just something very basic. I think that would be. I always think back to in the Netherlands. There's a famous clip from this interview of a guy who is walking in Amsterdam in, I think, 1993, 4, 5, something like that. And he asked people, would you buy a mobile phone? And all these people say, no, I have an answering machine at home. No, why would I want people to call me in the middle of the day? You know, what a nonsense thing. And everyone says, no, this is nothing. And, 30 years later, here we are. And I'm in the Netherlands, and you are in India, and we are talking, and this is just amazing. So next generation, to be honest, I cannot even project this, and I think it's going way faster than this mobile phone and an internet example. So it will be really cool. Actually, I think if it's groceries. That would be cool. Yeah, that's my answer.
Awesome. Glad to have you on, Bram. I think this was quite an insightful conversation, both for myself and hopefully for those people listening. And for those of you who have tuned in, like the idea is like we are having different builders, and I think next conversation is going to be with a VC who's been investing in the space and want to get a perspective. They are looking at multiple sets of things. So I think it's an interesting thing to get different vantage points, and idea is to get you excited and having a conversation and reaching out and talking to people. And it's one of those best times, like where it's gone through that brim enough where people are interested and excited and are here, but the market is in a way where people are like, your accessibility to people is like a lot more, and this is the time where you should, I think, make those connections and sort of build your place in the space. So awesome. Thanks for taking time out and coming on, Bram. It was a great.
Thanks.
Cheers.